So I am a content creator. I shoot videos and take photos for a living, and you guys know that here on the channel I've been covering a lot of Android phones and their camera systems. Well, here we are. This is 10 reasons why I've decided to jump ship, at least temporarily, to the iPhone 13. So again, like a lot of you guys know, for the past few months, I've been rocking the Google Pixel 6 as my everyday driver phone, and I do absolutely love it. I can honestly say it is the best Android experience I've ever used, but it is still not perfect. Most crucially, app support is just far better with iOS. Because Apple have so many fewer devices on sale, apps just generally are always going to work better because developers only have to test their software on a handful of phones. With Android, it's basically the complete opposite. Sometimes I'm working on a phone and essential apps that I rely on a regular basis just don't play well with the phone hardware. Or for instance, I upload a video clip via an app and the Android version will just compress it horrendously, whereas on iPhone, it looks absolutely perfect. The main issue I have with Android is that apps still crash on a semi-regular basis. Overall, again, the Google Pixel 6 is the best experience I have of this, and crashes are on the rarer side with this phone. They do still happen though, and one of the worst culprits is actually the Gmail app. Regularly, I can't actually send emails for maybe a 5 to 10 minute window, and sometimes it won't even work after a phone reset. The iPhone, on the other hand, is fluid, robust, solid, and I think if you gave me a task to try and get the iPhone to crash within an hour, I just don't think I could do it. So the cameras are just more natural, and a lot of the time. Android cameras are amazing. For instance, on the S22 Ultra, you have access to an optical 230mm focal length zoom. The Pixel 6 has some of the best dynamic range I've ever used on a phone due to its HDR processing tech, and some of the motion modes are extremely fun to use and make expensive and complicated photography techniques easy to pull off. But there is something missing. Every time I use an iPhone, I'm just so impressed by how natural the shots look. Time and time again, detail is constantly retained both in the highlights of the shot as well in the shadows of the shot, and the camera deals with low light naturally and extremely impressively. You guys know that one of my biggest complaints with the Pixel 6's camera is that shots just look artificial. They do absolutely look great, I just don't really think that actually things look like that in real life, whereas on the iPhone it's like the polar opposite, and I think just every single shot normally looks great. The iPhone is also insanely fast. Let me explain. Recently I was on a job where we weren't really supposed to be shooting where we were shooting, and I was pretty sure we were going to be stopped as soon as I whipped out my bigger camera. Cue taking them on a smartphone, because they were for social media anyway. So we got into the location and the model started posing, and on my Pixel 6, I physically couldn't snap away fast enough. I just couldn't make sure I got a selection of photos in each, every different pose. And I actually ended up borrowing the client's iPhone 13 Pro Max and literally took about 50 photos in under a minute, snapping away constantly with no buffering or any shutter lag. I'm definitely not saying this happens with every Android camera, but iPhones on the whole are a more reliable camera system. Next up is resale value. And as it goes, Pixel resale value is actually pretty decent compared to other Android phones. If you want a seriously bad resale value, I'd recommend you go and buy a Samsung phone, for instance. For some reason, and I just don't know why, some brands just don't carry the same weight that Apple and Google seem to. And it kind of means it's a bit like a used car. As soon as you take the plastic off, you're ripping a few $100s off your purchase. If you get into a good cycle of refreshing an iPhone though, you can literally sell last year's generation of phone for just a few $100s less than you paid for it, meaning you can pretty much get access to the newest year's model for only a few $100 upgrade every single time. No surprises on this one, I'm just a bit fed up with the lack of integration between my phone and my MacBook. This certainly isn't Android fault, but as a working professional who edits all of my work on a 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro, it would have been nice to have a tighter integration with my phone, and that's ended up being a massive reason why I've ended up switching. I do use a lot of Google services, which makes things easier, as a lot of my files are stored in Google Drive, a lot of my photos stored on Google Photos, and I do use Google Apps to run my business. However, things like lacking AirDrop, which is literally the best file transfer system I've ever seen between a phone and a computer, or being able to seamlessly share calls to your computer directly from your phone is pretty hard to beat. Similarly to the last point, this is a total personal preference, but I still use AirPods every single day. And the integration is just so much better on an iPhone. I do and have used AirPods for the last few months on my Pixel since owning it, and they do work with no real problems, but it does lack essential functionality like smart pausing on music when you take an earphone out, not to mention you can't even see the battery percentage natively of your AirPods on an Android phone. As invested as I am in the Google ecosystem, I don't use a ton of their hardware, but I do use a whole bunch of their software, primarily obviously things like the YouTube app and the other apps apps like I've described. The good news is that previously Apple have been pretty strict about how many Google services can run on iPhones or how good they can be. And I do feel like slowly but surely iOS is opening up so that I can get close to a native Google experience on my iPhone. And this really is only a win for users. I don't want to keep banging on about it, but the overwhelming theme of this video is that this iPhone just makes life easier for me as a content creator. Android has got way better in the last few years. Since the updates, the Pixel 6 is, again, the closest thing to an iPhone on the Android system that I've ever used. But it still wasn't perfect, and now a few of those differences have tempted me over to the dark side. Everything just seems easier on the iPhone, fewer crashes, faster processes, and a better overall experience. And it kind of just seems like better value. Apple is famously joked about online about how expensive their products are, but hot take, I actually don't agree with that. Apple does obviously make premium products, but in my opinion, you get what you pay for. For example, my 16-inch MacBook Pro cost me over £2,000 here in the UK, but I run my entire business off this computer, and it literally is the most powerful machine I've ever used. The iPhone similarly is expensive, but the baseline iPhone 13 actually seems like it is really strong value for money. Now, I know it's not the Pro or the Pro Max, but the fact that you can pick up essentially a leading smartphone for a price like this is pretty impressive. That's if you can manage with the fact you won't be getting access to a telephoto lens, but personally I don't see that as a massive big deal. And that point's made by this video where I compared the iPhone 13 to my $5,000 professional camera.